What are we whispering about?
So I heard the noise first, and I sat and I thought, and I looked around my bedroom, and I thought, where's that noise coming from? You know, this vibrating noise that somebody's blowing on a blade of grass almost. But there was this defined melody running through it, and I thought, where's that coming from? And then on my bed, right in front of me, all of a sudden, there was all these little people just marching across my bed. And they were really, really, really tiny. I'd say no bigger than my actual thumbnail. They were tiny.
In the air, by the sea, from the land, and within you and me. Fairies are whispering. This is Claire Casely, and I am a fairy whisperer. To catch a whisper, you have to listen closely. Listen with me. Hello, welcome to the Fairy Whispering Podcast. I'm your host, Claire Casely. To connect with the podcast, you can contact me, Claire, at thefairywhispering.com, and find the podcast on social media at Fairy Whispering Podcast. Thank you for being here with me on this journey and for supporting the podcast. Enjoy this episode. With me this evening is Coco Brown, and Coco is heritage development and events organiser and guide at Port Elliot in Cornwall. Coco gave me an amazing tour of the gardens. Coco shared her really interesting story and an experience connected with fairies. Welcome, Coco.
Hello, Claire.
We met recently, didn't we?
Yes, we did. Yes, we did. We met here at Port Elliot.
I just wanted to start with your background, Coco, and could you talk about your background, growing up in Derbyshire?
Derbyshire. Yeah. Okay. Well, I moved around quite a lot as a child because I grew up in care. And so I lived with my mum till I was 6. So originally I lived in Cheshire before I moved to Derbyshire. Um, and yes, I have a very interesting heritage. And so my mum is from a traveling showman fraternity, and my great grandfather was a chap called James Dean, and he helped to found the Travelling Showman's Guild. And when the chairman passed away, he took that position. So he eventually became chairman of the Travelling Showman's Guild as well. And through that side of my heritage, from my mum's side, they also did the traveling shows with the Native Americans at that time in the early part of the Victorian era, when they were coming over to do the shows like Buffalo Bill Cody and other troops that were coming over. So I do have a little bit of Native American heritage as well from that. So yeah.
Who is your ancestor from the Native American heritage side of things?
Well, I'm not sure. I know that they were part of the Iroquois tribe,
Ah, okay.
but I don't know really much about it, if I'm honest. Because I grew up in care, I was somewhat disconnected um, from that side of the family. So I've only managed to pick up sort of bits and bobs from my mum over the years. And she was also disconnected from the fraternity as well. So there's lots of things that, that I haven't found out that I would absolutely love to find out. But I do know that they were from the Iroquois tribe.
And have you connected with them?
No, I mean, when you say connected, I have in a sense. So I do practice Native American spirituality, if you like, their sort of like religious beliefs, because I tend to find that it suits me and who I am. So I make a connection that way. So I've done sweat lodges in the past and I've learned about their medicine work. And I also do a meditation called shamanic journeying, which is a bit like astral projection, but I would like to describe it as a more of a dreaming awake experience. And I use a drum. Um, in fact, if you just bear with me, I'll go and get it. I'll show you my drum.
Yeah, that would be great to see.
So that's my drum. And what,
Oh, look at that. That's amazing. And the design on it, is that something you painted, Coco, on the drum or
no, this drum was given to me as a gift. And what it represents, you've got a thunderbird here in the middle. And at the heart of the thunderbird is the beating heart. And you've got colours going around the outside. So these represent the four directions and the medicine wheel. And it also represents all the different races of the earth from north, south, east, and west. So there's a lot of meaning sort of interwoven with the drum. And I'm just going to try and get out my beating stick, which is a deer antler. So
oh,
bear with me because it's a bit twisty. So that's my beating stick there,
oh, look at that. That's amazing.
and that's made of a deer antler.
Uh-huh.
So everything's in nature, and that's what beat the drum with.
Yeah, because you were saying that you use that, you go out on the land and play the drum.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, that's right. So I use the drum to drum myself into the shamanic journey of the meditation. And when I say it's a dream and awake experience, it really is because you get to the point where you're not imagining anymore and you don't have any control over what happens in the shamanic journey. Just the same as you would when you're dreaming, you don't have control of what you're dreaming about until you wake up the next day and then you remember. So it's a very, very similar thing, but you're awake. Um, and I have had the privilege of meeting some of my ancestors through doing these meditations, which has been amazing. And I have actually researched um, some of my spirit guides when they've told me things. They've told me information within this shamanic journey about the tribes and what they meant and what they were about. And I've actually done the research on that, and it's all true. So yeah, it's pretty amazing because your ancestors are still here, they're just in another realm, but they're here to guide us and protect us, and they do. So, and they are really quite pleased and grateful when you connect with them as well. They're just out there waiting for you to connect and say hi. I never know what happens in a shamanic journey. I just have to wait until the spirit guides and the spirit animals and the fairy folk and other little beings make themselves known to me. And so they often do. But interestingly, they do tell me things as well, information. And then I go off and research it and then find that it's all true. So I can give you an example of that. So I met one of my ancestors in a shamanic journey, and he showed me a fox, but it wasn't any sort of colour. It was sort of like a iridescent fox, if you like, and it just kind of scuttled by me. But then the fox turned round and showed me these colours of orange and yellow. And they were really fine. So the fox showed me orange first and then showed me yellow. And I didn't know at the time, obviously, why and what the colours meant. I knew they meant something. Then they showed me a distinctive mountain with snow cap. And then one of my ancestors said, my name is Black Hawk, and gave me a feather. So, and told me a few other things as well. So I found that quite interesting because they were giving me facts almost like they knew I was going to go away and do my research on this. Being an historian, this is what I do. So after the journey, I did my research and found out that Black Hawk had fought in the American War of Independence, and his tribes were the Sun tribe and the Orange Fox tribe. So that was the colours of the orange fox and the yellow. So that's what tribe. He was trying to tell me what tribe that I actually belonged to. And iridescent fox that went by, that was grey, was their emblem, their specific emblem. So yeah, it's quite fascinating because people don't actually believe that shamanic journey in you are actually meeting your real ancestors, but you are absolutely meeting them. They're in a different realm somewhere. They're still existing, and once you break that through your subconscious by allowing yourself to raise your frequencies to get onto their radio channel, if you like, um, all sorts of magical things happen like that. Yeah, yeah. And I always get proof. So yeah, so I do gain information that way about my ancestry, and it's not a gift. Everybody can do it, and it just takes a little bit of practice and being comfortable with it as well. And once you get over that kind of fear barrier of the unknown, your spirit guides are always there to protect you because that's what they are there for, to protect you and to guide you. And your ancestors are always there watching over you as well and guiding you on a very, very subconscious level. And then it's up to our own sort of free will to be able to connect with that, So
Yeah, I identify with what you're saying from past experience of shamanic journey and encountering, yeah, receiving messages, encountering beings. And then what I've done
yeah,
is Google things afterwards if I've received a name or something that I didn't understand. And it's amazing what comes back. And you're like, wow.
yeah, it is. It is amazing. It is amazing. Yeah.
I've noticed, Coco, there's a feather behind you. Behind,
Yes.
does that have some significance?
I love feathers. And oddly enough, when I come across a feather, I never pick them up. Never. I leave them where they are. But people give them to me as gifts. And if somebody gives me a feather as a gift, I always keep it. And that was given to me as a gift when I moved to Cornwall. So I've kept it there. Yeah.
Oh, that's
Yeah.
amazing.
Mm, yeah.
You were talking, sorry, you were talking about your guides. I was wondering if there's any one particular that you work with or that
Yes.
is perhaps connected to fairies.
I have one that I work with. Well, when I say work with, he's just always there. And he's the one that sort of guides me in the right direction, if you like. His name is Lightning Strikes. and he has lightning strikes on painted on his hand. He appeared to me when I first started doing shamanic journeying with the Metis Medicine Deer tribe, and he was the first one that came to me, and he's been with me ever since. So when I do a shamanic journey, I always initially visualize a garden and a door, and I'll walk through the door and into my garden, and he's always there waiting for me. And then he's the one that sort of says, come with me, and I'm going to take you to where you need to be. And he's the one that always guides me, sometimes out of the garden and into another world, into a place, and then he lets me go. And then at that point, I'm probably quite deeply into the shamanic journey at that point, and that's the point where he kind of just lets me go, and then I'll just follow, and I'll walk, and I'll wait to see what happens and who shows up or what shows up. Often it's animals as well, so um, I do have a blackbird as well that comes to me a lot, and I've also kind of made that connection with Black Hawk as well, being a Black Hawk, and I have a blackbird. Um, and so, but I mean, every journey is different, and different spirit guides come to me quite often as well, and I might get a new one. Occasionally, they'll come and introduce themselves. But lightning strikes is always there, and it always has been right from day one, really. Yeah.
Yeah, I was just thinking as well when you were talking about the connection with gardens, and that's something I've just been writing about as
Mm,
being a limit. They are these liminal places, aren't they? Because they are on the edge of our world and
yeah.
the fairy world, the spirit world. They're portals, aren't they, for us to connect with those other places?
Yes, yeah, that's right. Yeah, I think I agree with you there, actually, Claire. Because when I go into my garden, it's almost like going into an airport terminal, going into an airport lounge before you get onto a plane. If I'll make that analogy. Yeah, so it's almost like that's where I go. That's my safe place. That's where I feel safe. And lightning strikes is always there. And then once I sort of come out of the garden, I could be anywhere. I could go anywhere. I don't know because I'm not in control of it at that point. But my garden's my safe place before I go anywhere, before I take that journey. So yeah, it's almost like an airport lounge for me, somewhere that I go and wait until I'm actually going to catch the plane and go somewhere else.
I'd love to move on to your experience next, but before I do, I was just wondering, do you have any, or have you found any photos of the travelling fairs that your
Yeah.
ancestors were part of?
Yes, yes. So I haven't got them with me, unfortunately. They're in Derbyshire at my mum's house because when I moved down, I kept a lot of important stuff at my mum's. Um, and I only just kind of got what I could in terms of clothes and things that I needed on a day-to-day basis in my car. I had to literally put my whole car into my Vauxhall Corsa and moved down to Cornwall. So a lot of my papers and things like that are at my mum's, and she's sort of like keeping hold of them for now until I get my own place. Then I'll probably go back to Derbyshire and collect those and bring them back down. But yes, I have. Now, my mum, my real mum, when I say my mum, I'm talking about my foster mum, by the way.
Right, okay.
But my real mum, and my real Auntie Gillian. It was my Auntie Gillian that actually did all the research on the family, and she spent about 15 years just gathering photographs, images
Yeah.
of our family. So they had in the Victorian times they had a ghost illusion show,
Oh,
and they stayed in the ghost business within the show showman fraternity.
mhm.
So they ended up with the modern ghost rides and things like that as well. But yeah, they started off with a ghost illusion show, and one of my uncles, who I believe was called Reuben, he had sweet stalls, but he also used to make his own sweets in a little place behind his house. So we did find that out. And they also had a fruit and veg stall on the markets as well. So, and they used to call him Tuffy Dean. That was his name because up north you call sweets Tuffies. And so, yeah, his name was Tuffy Dean because he always had sweets in his pocket, apparently, that he always used to give out to the kids, the family. So if there was any sort of family get-togethers, Tuffy Dean had always come with his pockets full of sweets and he'd give them out to the children. But he made sweets for the fair. So that was one of my uncles, but then the rest of them ran a ghost illusion show, and then eventually they ran the ghost rides. Yeah. So we did find that, and I did have a photograph of one of my great aunties as well in her Victorian dress outside the ghost illusion show that they used to have. And they were all from Wigan, and obviously their meetings when they were trying to have these meetings about sort of consolidating the travelling showman's guild but also the band dwellers society. They used to meet up in a pub opposite Strangeways in Manchester. That's where they used to have the meetings, but obviously they travelled up and down the country. And I remember when I ended up in Derbyshire, because I lived not far from the border of Nottingham. And my real mum once said to me years ago, it's funny how you've ended up in Derbyshire so close to Nottingham because your grandma was the last one who was born in a wagon. And she was actually born in Sherwood Forest.
Oh, that's amazing. Gosh.
Yeah. And then I found out from an archaeological friend of mine who runs an archaeological group called Mercy in Archaeology. And he has done a lot of work in Sherwood Forest. And he was telling me that's where all the fair people went after Goose Fair, which is a big fair in Nottingham. And they called them in the fairground fraternity the back end runs. And then they'd go and winter up in Sherwood Forest before they travelled back up north again. So my mum's story fits all the history.
Yeah.
And there's actually a place in Sherwood Forest called Fairview. And that's where obviously it was near where they had a yard somewhere in Sherwood Forest where they would go and winter up before they went headed up back up north. Because Goose Fair was one of the last winter fairs that they did um, before the end of the year. So yeah, so I did find out a lot about my family and what they did and things like that. Yeah.
It's really interesting, isn't it, that they had this very nomadic lifestyle
Yeah.
that also connects with your Native American heritage as well, because they would have been nomadic people as well. And
That's right. And like even my own life, actually, by default, but so growing up in care, I never really stayed anywhere longer than 2 years and I was moved and moved. So I spent my whole childhood moving around and I had a very nomadic life because of it. Um, and then when I got to about 17, I left home and went traveling around the world as well. So it was kind of like in my blood to move around. And when I was a child, I didn't really know any different because like I said, every 2 years I was moving around here, there, and everywhere. And then oddly enough, when I got older and settled down, finally, I became a chairman of a heritage trust. Then, and I didn't actually think about it at the time until somebody actually mentioned it to me and actually said, "It's really strange, Coco, because your great great grandfather was the chairman of the Travelling Showman's Guild." And you've ended up being a chairman of a trust.
yes,
So there's lots of sort of parallels, that you could run between the life that I've had and my ancestry, and also, with the travelling showman as well. Very much so, yeah, yeah.
yeah. And it's amazing as well. I think it's worth mentioning what you did as part of that role,
Mm.
because you saved a castle.
Yeah,
Is that right?
Yeah, yeah. So basically, I mean, we were just a bunch of, I mean, I just graduated from university with a heritage English literature and history degree.
Hmm.
And then I had children, and I was kind of looking for something to do that was going to sort of, progress my career. But my career was on hold because I'd got children, and so I thought, I want to get involved in something. And it was actually the castle in our local village, and it was just collapsing in the middle of a field. Basically, it was a ruined early 13th century medieval castle. So a group of us got together, and we initially started actually as more of an action group to put pressure on the council to get the castle consolidated, because an agreement had been put in place with UK Coal that they could outcrop near the castle, but then they got to consolidate it, but nothing had been done. So they'd outcrop UK Coal for about 2 years, and then they'd stopped outcropping. They'd gone and moved on to another place, but the castle hadn't been consolidated. So originally we were putting pressure on the council to get that consolidation works done. So and we won, and we managed to get it done eventually. So that took us about a year of browbeating, lots and lots of browbeating the council, and eventually we got the consolidation works done. And we were very present on at the site at the time that that was being done. And then we decided to then form a society originally. So we were originally called the Codnor Castle Heritage Society, Preservation Society. And then we decided that we'd invite Time Team there, because we thought that would be quite exciting, because there wasn't really a lot known about the castle at that time. It sort of fell out of living memory. Um, the research was scattered up and down the country. So the history about the castle was quite sparse. So we thought we'll get Time Team there, and they might be able to find out exactly, what date the castle was built, and a bit more about the castle and its architecture. So anyway, Time Team came in 2007, and they spent 5 days there, and they dug for free. And it was just amazing because they found a Henry V gold noble coin. So they excavated part of the moat. And we already knew actually that Henry V had been to Codnor Castle, gathering the retinue of the De Greys, who were barons there, to march to Agincourt, to the Battle of Agincourt, because Derbyshire archers were actually the best in Europe, predominantly because of the English ash
Mm.
that grew in Sherwood Forest, which was right on the boundaries of the castle. And in fact, the deer park boundaries are still in existence there today. So we knew that the archers, he needed the Derbyshire archers to go, and they were in great retinue. So they marched along with Henry V to Agincourt. And we think that while he was there, he plopped that coin in the moat, the Henry V gold noble, probably for a good luck, safe return of De Grey's men or something like that. It probably more than likely would have been. It was too much money to put into a moat unless it was for something really important, because it would have been about a month's wages for a night. So I doubt I would have lost it. But also, it was found in its entirety, which is very rare, because in those days, obviously, it was gold. And if you wanted something that cost half a noble or a quarter of a noble, they used to cut them up,
Gosh.
and turn them into half nobles and quarter nobles rather than printing new money. And then, if something was less than that, then they'd cut a sliver off it. So to find a gold noble in its entirety is quite rare, which told us that it was more than likely deliberately put there, you know given that water was a very, very spiritual thing. And that's where wishing wells and everything is derived from, and people putting money into wishing wells. So we think that Henry V himself more than likely put it in because it had come straight from the mint. So Yeah, so that was amazing, and we did find out a lot about the castle while Time Team was there as well. So they helped date it more accurately and things like that, and expose some of the architecture. So yeah, that was very exciting. And then after Time Team left, obviously that helped to raise the profile of the castle and
Yeah.
raise the profile of us in terms of the work that we were doing there. And then we decided to change from a society and become a proper registered trust. So we got our charity number. Then I became chairman, and um, and then we set about clearing all the grounds, getting it safe for the public to come on, so we could basically um, give it back to the community and allow the community to come on and do projects, and we put events on and battle reenactments and all that kind of thing. And we had school kids up there doing projects. We did guided tours. We had open days. And it just grew and grew and grew and grew from that point really. And what started out being a hobby really kind of grew arms and legs and my whole life practically in the end. Even though I was working as well, and we managed to get some heritage lottery funding as well from it. And yeah, it was a really, really great, exciting part of my life that. And I did that, ended up doing it for 16 years.
Oh, that's wonderful. And it's something that, it will carry on for generations, isn't it?
Yeah, well, that's it. I mean, the castle's preserved now. It's not going anywhere and it won't fall apart anymore. And also, because of all the research that we did over 16 years, we wrote a book about Codney Castle. And so at least now we've got some tangible evidence of the De Greys who built the castle and why, how it evolved. And that's so important for the local community to be able to have those books now that we wrote. And we got funding for that as well to get those published.
Yes.
And they're in all the local libraries now around Codner.
Wow.
And so, yeah, it's just great now that we've got that evidence and we've got it in a book form. The local schools have got it. So, yeah, it's really, really good.
Amazing. I'd love to put up a photo of the castle. Has it got a website?
Yeah, so when the project finished after 16 years, because what happened was we were actually going for Heritage Lottery funding to see if we could purchase it and have a visitor centre up there and a cafe and things. But we were always sort of like the access to the castle was always a problem. So we had to rely on people walking up because it was down a lot of sort of like
Right.
bad country lanes, really. And if you didn't have a four-wheel drive, it was going to wreck people's cars. So we had to rely on the goodwill of people walking up, which they did um, in their droves, actually. And we did have use of the Tudor farmhouse when we used to make people coffee and cake and things like that. Yeah, so that was really, really, really nice.
Oh, nice.
And we were sort of in the middle of going for Heritage Lottery funding, and we'd actually got the first round of it. So we got 20,000 and that was match funded with the Architectural Heritage Fund. And that was the first round of funding. And we were just about to go on to the second round of funding when my ex bought it. And because there was lots of ancillary buildings connected to the castle. So there was the Tudor farmhouse. There was also a Tudor grain store. Um, there was a 1950s milking parlour, and that was the first one in the country that actually had a turntable milking system. And that was huge. That was still there. And so he bought it to develop all those buildings, which he's still doing now. And that's why, and once he bought it, that was it, there was no reason.
Okay.
And he didn't want the trust there. And so we had to fold after 16 years, which at the time was heartbreaking. Um, but at the same time, sometimes you have to embrace change because better things, can come about from it, which from my point of view actually did happen to me, luckily. And so yeah, so we folded after 16 years, once that had happened. But I mean, he's doing a marvelous job. I have to say he is. So what we did was we decided to create a visual archive of all the work that the trust had done for 16 years, and also we wanted to put all our sort of research and everything onto a public forum for people to just go on and look at. So we did create a website. It's www.codnacastlehistory.com, all one word. So yeah, so we've got loads and loads of photographs on there from all the consolidation work, some pictures of when Time Team were there, and then all the work that we did after that. So we got the probation services there as well, helping us, the National Citizenship Service. So students came to help us. We had lots and lots of different volunteers come in. All our events, it's all on there. It's all on there.
Fabulous. I just have to say for listeners listening outside the UK, Time Team was a TV program in the UK, and they were a team of archaeologists and historians, and they'd go and investigate sites like Castle that's Coco's talking about as part of the TV show.
And the actual episode of when they came to Codnor Castle is on codnacastlehistory.com as well. So there's a link on there that you can click on and you can actually watch the episode. It was called Gold in the Moat.
Gold in the Moat. Oh, fabulous.
Yes. And it was, they actually, when Time Team finished their program, and I think they've been going for around 17 years, they did a top 10 of best ever programs they'd ever done. And the dig that at Codnor Castle made the top 10 best ever programs.
Oh, that's wow, achievement.
Great, which is great.
It's great.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, well, thanks for sharing about that. And so fascinating. There is another question I have to ask because people might be thinking, wondering about it as well. What's a ghost illusion show?
Oh, okay. So basically, have you heard the old saying, smoke and mirrors?
Yeah.
That's where it came from.
Right.
So a ghost illusion show in the Victorian times. So they used mirrors and smoke to create illusions through the mirrors.
Yeah.
So people would be able to go in and they would see sort of like shadowy figures walking around. But basically, they were creating illusions through mirrors to create these spectres of ghosts, so they kind of looked real.
Wow.
I don't know how the mechanics of exactly how they did it, but I know they used mirrors and smoke and things like that. Yeah, and that's where the term "smoke and mirrors" actually comes from. Is the ghost illusion shows.
I'm wondering whether we can go back now, Coco, to your childhood experience that you had.
Yeah. Well, I was around probably about 4 or 5. And one night I was just lying in bed and I couldn't sleep. And so I just ended up sitting up in bed. And to start with, I heard a noise. And to me, it sounded like when you're a child and you used to get a thick blade of grass and put it between your lips and blow it, and it used to make like a vibrating sound. It was like that. It was that kind of vibrating noise, but it had a bit of a tune to it. So it was sort of like a bit like that. So I heard the noise first, and I sat and I thought, and I looked around my bedroom, and I thought, where's that noise coming from? You know, this vibrating noise that somebody's blowing on a blade of grass almost. But there was this defined melody running through it. And I thought, where's that coming from? And then on my bed, right in front of me, all of a sudden there was all these little people just marching across my bed. And they were really, really, really tiny. I'd say no bigger than my actual thumbnail. They were tiny. Now, in my 5-year-old brain, I thought they were dolly mixture people because that's what I thought as a 5-year-old. you know. I just kind of equated them to sweets because they had very, really, really bright colours. They were wearing bright colours. And so there was purples and yellows and reds, and they were really vibrant. And they were holding flags as well. And they were brightly coloured flags. And it was almost like a parade. And they were looking like they were on a mission, like they were going somewhere. But there was them, thousands of them. And they were just going across my bed like that. So say if I'm 5 now and I'm sitting in my bed, they were literally going across me like that.
So diagonally, yeah.
Yeah. And it went on all night. This wasn't just a split second thing or a 5 minute thing. This was going on all night. And there was thousands of them. And they were all holding flags and the music didn't stop. The music, the vibrations kept going on and it just went on and on and on. Now, I sat there, I remember not being frightened.
Mm.
So I can't remember being fearful, but also I didn't feel compelled to touch them either for some reason, which would be pretty instinctive for a 5-year-old
Yeah.
to grab them or try, but I didn't. I think I was just fascinated with what I was seeing.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and they just seemed so bright and so vibrant, these colours. But yes, there was thousands and thousands of them, and I don't know if it was some sort of parade or whether it was them they were marching somewhere. I don't know, but they were definitely on a mission, because they were just going ahead and going by me, and they were carrying on. And it wasn't until it started getting light outside that they just kind of faded out. And then I shared a room with my brother then, who was 2 years older than me. This was back in the 70s, by the way, before it wasn't illegal to share with your brother. And I remember him waking up, and I remember saying to him as clear as day, "Did you see those little people marching across my bed all night?" And he went, "No, what are you talking about?" And that was it. But it was just something that I just never forgot it. I just never ever forgot that. And I suppose from one point of view, it opened my mind without me realizing it, I guess. To more spiritual endeavors as I got older, I guess, I would say.
Yes. I just want to talk know a little bit more about the people themselves. Could you see their faces, or was it just colours, or?
Uh, yeah, I could. I knew there were people, even though they were tiny. I knew there were people. They had hats on and boots and things, and I could see that some of them had got beards. And
Yeah.
oddly enough, though, I don't know what colour they were.
Mm. Yeah.
I can't say whether they were European or African or Chinese.
Yeah.
I don't know what they were,
Yeah.
but some of them did. I remember some of them had facial features and beards, but they were wearing hats, very bright clothes, boots, and they were all holding these flags.
Yeah. And were they both sexes? Were there men and women as well? Or did they have children? Or was it they just adults? Or?
Uh, I can't remember thinking that they were male and female or children. To me, they were dolly mixture people.
Right. Yeah.
So yeah, I can't remember thinking to myself, "Oh, that's a man," or "That's a woman," or "That's a child." I just remember them being people marching across my bed and walking across my bed.
Wow. And did they have any animals with them?
Not that I remember. No, not that I remember.
Yeah, it's just fascinating because in Cornwall, where you are now, some of the folklorists talk about different types of fairies. So there's the piskies, but they also speak about the little people. So these are small people that come out of the mounds, the burial mounds in Cornwall, and sometimes they go to people's homes. They just march into people's homes to dance and play.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yes,
Yeah. It did feel carnivalesque.
yeah.
It felt celebratory. It wasn't sort of a macabre kind of march, if you like. It wasn't somber.
Hmm.
They were they seemed upbeat, if you like. They were sort of jolly while they were marching, and the music was quite, jolly as well. The vibrations and the melody was quite like a jolly melody. It wasn't sad or anything. I didn't get that impression. I just got the impression that they were marching across my bed with this kind of jovial music playing, as though somebody was playing a blade of grass almost, or um, but I can't remember them having instruments. I can't remember. I can't remember whether they were male or female or anything like that. They were just really, really tiny, brightly coloured, and I do remember them holding flags, and I remember them wearing hats as well.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, yeah. And I've never forgot it. Never have I forgot it because it went on all night for hours and hours and hours. It seemed like a lifetime at the time being back, and that I couldn't quite believe it when the sun was the daylight was starting to appear through my window. I couldn't quite believe that I'd been awake all night as well watching this, but there was thousands of them. I mean, thousands. Yeah.
Because sometimes with fairy experiences, there's some time dilation. So, did it feel like you'd been there for hours, or did it feel like a shorter, like the night just went really quickly?
Yeah, it didn't feel like I'd been awake all night, which I obviously had been. Um,
Mm.
it didn't feel like that until the sun started shining through the window, and I suppose the realization that it was morning.
Yeah,
And then they disappeared. But I can tell you what did happen after that.
yeah.
I was playing in my bedroom about a week later, and I did try and lock myself in the wardrobe because I was convinced for some reason that they were in there. I don't know why. But yeah, I remember my brother coming upstairs looking for me, and I was sitting in the wardrobe looking for them.
Oh,
Mm.
that's the sort of thing that children do, isn't it? That we, with that sort of experience, trying to find how to get back to the source of that experience, I suppose, about how do I get to that place again? Sort of thing. Yeah.
Yeah, 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 maybe. But I don't actually remember why. I just remember going into the wardrobe and locking myself in, looking for them. For some reason, I must have thought they were in the wardrobe or wondering where they'd possibly gone. Yeah, and hoping probably that they might come back, but they never did.
Another thing about fairy experiences that quite often happens is that there's some kind of life change when people encounter any supernatural being, whether it's fairies or cryptids or ghosts. Did something change in your life after that experience?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I was put into care 6 or 7 months after that. Yeah, yeah. So yeah, quite a profound thing happened really, because my whole life changed after that. So yeah.
So it was like a big crossroads. And did looking back to that experience, did it bring you any comfort, or I don't know, did it bring you any happiness looking back on that experience?
Um, don't know really. I mean, like looking back, because I never equated them as being fairies. To me, as a 5-year-old, they were dolly mixture people. They were sweetie people because fairies in books, fairy tale books when you're young, didn't look like, they were sort of gossamer winged little people, that look like ballet dancers with wings. And I think as well, lots of things to me as a child weren't relatable because I'm mixed race, and a lot of the fairy tale books that were in the library at school that I grew up with when I was a small child, they were all European looking, blonde hair and white and gossamer wings and all of this, which I know now is obviously a Victorian ideology. But
Yeah.
yeah, so I could not, to me, it wasn't really relatable to me a great deal. And so I never really thought in my head that they were fairies because they didn't look like the fairies in the books when I was younger. It's not until I was older that I learned that actually, Victorian fairies aren't the same as the fairies in, A Midsummer Night's Dream that Shakespeare wrote, and medieval fairies were positively demonic. So they've changed as time has gone on. So for me, I never thought they were fairies. For me, they were little, dolly mixture people marching across my bread, and I didn't know who they were, but I knew they were there, and I knew what I'd seen. So it wasn't really until years and years later that I thought to myself, well, they might have been fairies, um, but who knows, you know? But they were definitely there, and they were definitely alive, and there was thousands of them. So yeah, I didn't really think, oh, they're fairies on my bed at that time. No, because they didn't look like the fairies that were drawn in fairy tale books growing up in the 70s. So
And did you have any other supernatural experiences after that, Coco?
not really, no, no, not really. I suppose I was on survival mode, being a child as well, and like going into a strange family. You're sort of trying to navigate your way through changes and dealing with that as best as a small child can. I mean, not that's not to say that. I mean, I was a 70s child, so we grew up free range. We were free range children. Ran out the door in the morning and you came back in the evening, and so I used to go running around fields and all day long. You know, Picking gooseberries and plums for my dinner and making dens like all most kids did in the 70s.
Yeah.
So no, I didn't really have any sort of like supernatural experiences as a child. Only that one. Just that, yeah, yeah. But I suppose in a sense, I suppose it did give me comfort knowing that there was other worlds coexisting with ours.
Yeah.
But I wouldn't have been processing it like that as a 5-year-old.
No. Yeah.
But I would have been, yeah, I think looking back now in retrospect, it certainly did help me
Mm.
with my spiritual development, if you like. But I did have an experience when I was 12,
Mm.
and this was when I was sent to a children's home. And I remember one night being really, really, just really upset about something. I can't remember exactly what it was now, but I remember being really, really upset, and I was crying in bed. And I looked down at the end of my bed, and Jesus was sitting at the end of my bed,
Oh my gosh.
as clear as day.
Mm.
And he just said, "Don't worry, I love you, and don't ever forget that."
Oh wow, I've got chills.
And then I just fell asleep.
Wow.
Yeah. So yeah, he was sitting on the end of my bed, and he just said, "I love you, don't worry." Mm, yeah,
Beautiful.
yeah. And it wasn't my imagination. I was awake and I was crying, and I just looked, just there. Yeah, so that was another experience when I was, but that was very fleeting, because then he was gone, and then I went back to sleep.
Thank you for sharing that. That's a beautiful experience. Coming up to the present day, you now do ghost tours, don't you?
Yes, I do. Yeah,
And that's really interesting
yeah,
that you're now doing these ghost tours, and I'd love to hear about that, a little bit about that, and your any ghostly experiences you've had.
Mm. Um, well, yeah. So we did. I started doing ghost events actually at Codnor Castle before I moved down here. That's where it all started, really, when I was a chairman. And so we got Most Haunted down, and predominantly, I was. It was for me. It was a business model
Mm-hmm.
because I recognised it was a lucrative business, and we had to kind of prove that we were going to be self-sustainable to Heritage Lottery funding at the time. And I thought it was a really good way of sort of like raising a good revenue to prove to them that we could be self-sustainable. So at the time, I was looking at it more from a business point of view than anything else.
Mm-hmm.
So we got Most Haunted there, and that helped us. They helped to raise the profile of the ghost business. Now, I never saw any ghosts at Coventry Castle,
Mm.
but what used to happen to me up there quite a lot was that I used to get memories that I knew weren't mine. So I'd be walking, through the south court of the castle, and all of a sudden I'd get a memory in my head, but I knew it didn't belong to me. And so things started working through me by these memories all of a sudden just popping into my head, knowing that they weren't my memories. Uh, so that was a bit strange, and that used to happen quite a lot as well. And I used to tell my foster mum because she was a trustee as well. And there was one example, and I was just walking in the North Court one day. I was opening all the gates up, and I just saw this woman, like, and she'd got a long dress on, and she'd got her hands on her hips like that, and she was shaking her head. And she was going, too many children here, and I don't know what to do. What are we going to do with all these children? And she was in a bit of a tizzy and a panic. And then all of a sudden that memory was gone, but I knew it wasn't my memory. And I told my mum, I said, I've just had this old woman in my head with a long dress on, with her hands on her hips, and she's shaking her head and going into a panic because all these children are here. Anyway, about 6 months after that, we got contacted by um, the director of Rest Park in Bedfordshire, I think it is, and that's another De Grey seat. Um, yeah, so it's all connected to the family of the De Greys. So they lived there as well some years after Codnor Castle, and he came up to visit us because obviously for him, Codnor Castle was where the story started for the De Greys because they built the castle and they ended up being sort of big dynastic family that, spread themselves across England. So he'd done a lot of research about the De Greys and wanted to come and visit us and visit the castle. So when he came up, and he'd written a book about the lineage of the De Greys, and
Right.
when he came up, we
Mm-hmm.
were going through all our papers, all our research papers, and his, comparing and contrasting. And then he said to me, "Did you know, Coco, that the De Greys used to have lots and lots of orphans up here once a year, and
Oh,
anything up to 500 children used to just come up en masse." And I
gosh.
said, it's odd you said that because I've got actually a memory of that, of a woman panicking over it. And I didn't know what it was all about until you've just told me. And my mum was there when he said it. And she dropped a cup of tea on the floor because she remembers my memory and what I'd said. She
Yeah,
went, oh my God.
that is amazing.
Yeah, yeah. So things always kind of got proved right as well with the memories that I used to have.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Mm. So they were, I felt like they were sort of connecting to me through my memories almost through, yeah, yeah.
So interesting.
But yeah, that used to happen a lot. Yeah, it did. And then I had another memory once of a robin flying over the castle and then landing in this spot and tapping its beak onto a rock, like literally just behind the curtain wall of the castle. And about a week after that, we found a roof tile in the exact same place that the robin was pecking, a medieval roof tile with a dog print on it, a dog paws print in the middle of it.
Oh gosh.
So that was done when the tile was made in the medieval times.
Yeah.
And it turned out that one of the masons that was building the castle and making the tiles, it was done deliberately. So it wasn't a dog walking over the tiles while they were wet. He'd used his dog paw print as a marking, and the robin had showed me where it was in a memory.
That's incredible.
Mm.
It's fascinating, isn't it? I just think these ancient places, they hold so many layers of history. And I think I was saying this, we were talking about this, weren't we, when I came and visited you, that old buildings and old places just seem to have this memory that they hold with them. I mean, there's theories about this.
Yeah, yeah, they definitely do, and they work through you in all sorts of kind of strange ways. I think, like I said, just getting these memories that I know didn't belong to me, or getting shown something through a memory, like the robin, pecking on top of this rock, and then underneath that rock was that tile, and we didn't have many sort of like tangible things with the castle because it had fallen ruinous. And it was just so nice to be able to find that roof tile in terms of dating, but also the dog paw print on it made it really special. And we used to show that to all the school kids, when they used to come up. And like I said, the robin showed me where it was through a memory. So yeah, yeah, it's quite magical. It's the beautiful, magical connections that way. Because at first, I thought I was going a bit bonkers, and I used to tell my mum, why am I getting these memories? But then when they were proved right, I felt a whole lot better, that it wasn't my imagination. It was real. These memories were real. They were really real.
Yeah, it's validation, isn't it?
Yeah, it's validation. Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
It's been wonderful speaking with you, Coco.
No, it's been an absolute pleasure, Claire. Thank you.
I'd love you to share about the events that are coming up at Port Elliot. Yeah, and how people can get involved.
Okay, so well, ancient monastic tunnel tours with ghost stories. That runs every Thursday evening from 7:30 till 9:30, and you can book that on Port Elliot House and Gardens website through Eventbrite. And we've also got a mystery and history conference coming up on May 3rd and 4th. And you can also book tickets through Eventbrite on our Port Elliot House and Gardens website. We've got 3 festivals this year, and they're all advertised on Tunes in the Park. Yeah, so there'll be all sorts of things happening at the festivals as well, yeah.
Cool. Well, thank you ever so much, Coco. It's been lovely speaking with you and so fascinating what you shared.
Oh, thank you, Claire. It's been a pleasure.
Bye, Coco. This show is entirely created and edited by me. Appreciate your support and for listening. If you have a paranormal or fairy story that you'd like to share with me, email the show clairefairywhisperer@gmail.com or claire@thefairyWhispering.com. Thank you. See you next time. Bye for now.